Okay, so before the unit starts, I'm gonna ask all of you 5 questions. Question number 1: do people with a higher IQ make more money? Question number 2: do people with certain personality traits make more money? Question number 3: do taller people weigh more? Question number 4: do taller people make more money? And question number 5 is, do shorter people live longer? And in this unit, we're going to find out the answer to all those questions. So let's get started. Okay, all right. So I hope you like that intro. But on a more serious note, today we're going to begin the unit that will probably be most able to help you if you want to be a researcher as a career. Okay, so hopefully this will give you all the tools you need to be able to do that. All right, so let's go. Okay, all right. So today we're going to begin Unit 5. All right. So this unit has a lot of different ideas that we have to try to put together. All right, so we're going to start super simple. All right, and more importantly, to get you to understand why we want to do this, and then by showing you all the little steps along the way, then you can understand what exactly we're trying to accomplish here, and just how complicated some of these steps can be. Okay, so all right, write that down. Scatterplots, graphs, and stories. Okay, all right. So here now, these are just the questions that I asked during the intro. Okay, and but more importantly, I think one of the most important things that the ideas that I want to get through to you, is that there are going to be times in your life, and not that you don't do it already, where you have some questions that you want answers to. Okay, and doesn't have to be limited to these 5 questions that you see on the screen, obviously, right? But also a lot of times, and this goes beyond your personal conversations with your friends and family, past that, into work, into academics, right? If you want to work at a university, if you're a researcher and you have questions, the question isn't then about having a conversation like this in a coffee shop, right? Because if you have parents, right, that are professors and teachers, a lot of times you want to have these professional conversations that revolves different topics. And at the end of the day, it really comes down to this: what do you think of this? What do you think the reason is? And most importantly, how do you prove it? Right? And so that's where research comes in, right? And not only that, if you guys had science, right, it's the same thing as the scientific method, very closely. Right? What's your hypothesis? What data is there to prove that? And what statistical tools can you use to manipulate the numbers that you collected in such a way that it tells a story, and get some answers to those questions? Okay, so this is kind of like the overarching idea behind this entire unit. Okay, which is, how do you make an argument, and what proof can you bring to the argument? All right, and then not only that, once you say that, especially in the college academic setting, once you say that, then someone else can come back and have their own argument, right? And then you go back and forth, basically. Okay? All right. So, having said that, I want to show you what a scatter plot is, because none of the things that we do here can be discussed without knowing what a scatter plot is first. So let me lay out the storyline here, right? So the storyline here is this. Let's say, right, your little brother or sister is conducting an experiment in the 6th grade or 7th grade, okay, and they want to know, right, is there a relationship between a person's height and their weight? Okay. Now, I think many of you already know that there's obviously a relationship between height and weight, right? Because taller people tend to weigh more, right? So one of the things then is, let's say, maybe it's you, all right, or your little brother or sister, and they go around and they survey their class, right? So there are 19 students in the class, as you can see in the left-hand column here. And then they just go around and maybe they don't even ask, they just measure them, right? So they have them take a ruler out, right? A tape measurement, and measure how tall they are in inches. And then maybe there's a scale in the room and they measure, their weight, right, in pounds. So this is the data that is collected, right? So you have student 1 who's 60 inches tall, okay, weighing 100 pounds, so on and so forth. So let's say, right, you want to see if there's actually a proof, if there is actually a relationship between height and weight. Now, looking at the raw data here doesn't really help, because all you're staring at then is just a big bunch of numbers, and that doesn't really do you any good. So the way we take raw data, it's kind of like the way we take raw materials and turn them into something useful, all right? And these things, these tools, right, are mathematical tools like such as scatterplots, things later on like correlation, and then afterwards later on in regression analysis. Okay, so that's what all these things are about. So this raw data is for the most part useless right now. Okay, so let's say, right, I set up a graph. Okay, that's one of the most basic tools we can use. Let's say we set up a graph to establish the relationship, right, between height and weight. Now, I already set up one of the axes. So on the x-axis, right, which is the independent variable, right, we have height, and the dependent variable, we have weight, right? So let me finish numbering these first. So I'm going to press pause because I actually forgot to do it. All right, so hold on. Okay, so here I just set this up. All right, so let's say, right, we're just plotting a point here. So let me use a different color. Let's use green. All right. Yep. Okay. So here, the first one, right? We got 60 inches in height. It's 100. Where's 100? Okay. Right. So that's student number 1, and then we're gonna go to student number 2, so on and so forth. So 50. By the way, not the best way to lay out a graph. Okay. I just wanted to do it for simplicity's sake. Right. So on and so forth. So what I'm gonna do right now is to fast forward this. Okay. While I do this, so you guys can just kind of see the whole picture, but not have to spend like 15 minutes watching me graph. So I'm just going to graph it right now. So this part I'm going to edit and fast forward. Okay, all right, and I'm done here. So as you can see, right, if we're examining the relationship between weight and height. By the way, okay, I actually also want to mention this. So you know how we make height the independent variable and the y the dependent? Think about it. Why is that? Why can't we switch, right? Because my contention is you cannot have weight as the independent variable and have height as the dependent. Can you guys think of a reason why? Yeah, because height determines the weight, not the other way around, right? Even though there is a relationship here, right? How tall you are determines how much you weigh, not the other way around. Because otherwise, since if I want to get taller, then all I have to do is eat more, and that makes no sense, right? Now, that also has implications later when we talk about correlation, okay? So now, here, as you can see in this graph, right, the green dots are generally heading up in a positive direction, right? Notice I didn't, you know, I didn't mince words there, right? Positive slope, right? Positive direction, but it's not a directly straight line, right? Notice that the plots are relatively scattered, and that's why this is called a scatter plot. Okay, now what does it show us then? This graph, once we've organized the raw data into a graph, is that it allows us to see that, oh yeah, there is a positive relationship, right? The taller you are, generally, let me use a red arrow. The taller you are, generally, the more you weigh, right? That just makes sense, right? So now, having said that, right? So let me give you the definition. So what's a scatter plot? A scatter plot, and then we'll be done for today, actually. So a scatter plot has points that show the relationship between two sets of data, and only two, by the way. In this case, the weight versus the height. Okay, so anytime you want to examine a relationship between two different variables, you will look at the weight. You will look at a scatter plot, right? You will look at the relationship, and by plotting it out, you can see what the relationships are. And in the next lesson, we're going to talk more specifically about the different categories of those relationships. Now, let me give you an example, right? Based on this, right, graph, if I were to ask you, hey, what's the relationship between the temperature outside and ice cream sales? Right now, you can think of it on your own already. The warmer it is, the more ice cream, the ice cream man can sell. And this bears out that hypothesis, right? So notice, right, as the temperature goes up, okay, that should be an over arrow. As the temperature goes up, sales goes up. How can you tell? Because this is a positive slope. It's a positive scatter plot. The points are pointing in a positive direction, right? Now, let me add one more thing then. Okay, so once you get that, the end result by the end of the unit, what we're trying to accomplish is to find an equation for this scatter plot, for this line, actually. All right, so that's what we're trying to do. And that line is called the line of best fit. The method with which we do that is called a regression. Okay, so let's stop it right here. We'll come to class and practice some, and then that's it. Okay, so thanks for being patient with me. And okay, let's go back to class. See ya.
OMG, that was so good.